You said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool. But Aaliyah did say I have a special whistle. And she shot 13 today. She said that to you? Yeah, we just got to play their better defense, make her looks a little difficult, and kind of go from there.
They called it a special whistle. That's what Aaliyah Wilson said after Game 4, shaking her head at the stat sheet as Aaliyah Boston stood tall in victory. Wilson, the MVP of the Las Vegas Aces, claimed Boston had been gifted something unfair. But what Wilson called a whistle, the rest of us saw as pure dominance. From the opening tip, this wasn't a game decided by referees. It was a war in the paint, and Boston planted herself like a mountain that refused to move. By the time it was over, the Indiana Fever had outshot Vegas at the free throw line, outmuscled them on the boards, and silenced every excuse with a performance that had fans buzzing across the league. For weeks, the Fever had been on the wrong end of every borderline call. Game after game, fans saw Boston whistled for touch fouls while Wilson lived at the line. Whenever Kelsey Mitchell slid her feet, a foul was called. Whenever Boston fought for position, she got tagged. Vegas built their rhythm at the stripe, stacking free points that kept Indiana trailing. And then came Game 4. Instead of Vegas getting every whistle, Indiana pounded the paint and forced real contact, and suddenly the free throws piled up the other way. 34 for the Fever, 11 for the Aces. Becky Hammon sat at the podium afterward, cutting her press conference short with one sentence. They shot 34 free throws, we shot 11. Next question. That wasn't analysis, that was frustration. For a franchise that prided itself on toughness and resilience, it sounded more like pleading. The numbers don't lie. Indiana attacked the rim 46 times, Vegas only 18. Teams that live at the rim get whistles. Teams that settle for jumpers don't. Even more telling, total fouls across 4 games were basically even. Vegas with 82, Indiana with 80. That's not bias, that's balance, which means Game 4 wasn't a gift, it was a correction. And the real story was Boston's transformation. Go back to Game 3. Vegas swarmed her. Doubles came early. She looked rattled, turned the ball over, rushed her shots. Analysts started questioning if she could handle the playoff lights against the MVP. Game 4 answered that loudly. She studied the film. She adjusted her base. Instead of panicking under pressure, she kept her dribble alive, found open shooters, and muscled into better spots. Every possession told the same story. She was not going to let Vegas dictate her game anymore. She finished with 24 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. She shot 7 of 15 from the field and knocked down 10 of 13 free throws. That's not a referee's gift. That's a superstar forcing the game to bend her way. Wilson still scored 31, but those points came with a hidden truth. They were grueling. They came through contested mid-range shots, forced spins, and long jumpers. Every time she touched the ball, Boston's body was there. Every time she tried to spin baseline, Indiana guards dug down on her dribble. She still scored, but it drained her. By the fourth quarter, she wasn't sprinting as hard, her rotation slowed, and the exhaustion showed. That's the invisible tax Boston imposed all night. But Boston wasn't alone. Kelsey Mitchell stepped up with 25 points. 9 of 20 shooting doesn't scream efficiency, but every bucket came at a time Indiana needed momentum. Her threes silenced Vegas runs. Her drives forced mismatches. Her free throws built confidence. Lexi Hull only scored 7, but her defense was a masterclass. She hounded Jackie Young for 38 minutes, grabbed 7 rebounds, picked off 4 steals, even swatted a shot while playing with a bad back. Every loose ball was hers. Odyssey Sims bounced back after a dreadful Game 3, pouring in 18 on 6 of 9 shooting. She slashed into the lane, hit mid-range jumpers, and forced Vegas to stretch their defense. That pressure opened even more room for Boston inside. And then Shea Petty, just 7 points, 3 rebounds, and a couple of steals. But her poise was priceless. When the Aces threatened runs, she calmed possessions, hit timely shots, and gave Indiana the composure they needed. Put it all together, and you had a Fever team that didn't just rely on one star, they played like a unit. Contrast that with Vegas. Yes, Wilson scored. Yes, Young and Plum had moments, but the rhythm wasn't there. The ball stuck, the spacing crumbled, and when foul trouble hit, Liz, Jackie, Chelsea all with 5, the panic set in. Becky Hammon's timeout blunder was the cherry on top. A coach as seasoned as Becky rarely makes that mistake, but pressure does strange things. That technical free throw Indiana sank after the mistake locked momentum in place. Vegas knew. Indiana knew. The game was theirs. The body language told the story. Becky shrugs, Wilson sighs, teammates muttering about calls instead of focusing on defense. Champions are supposed to rise under pressure. Instead, the aces cracked. Social media erupted, the special whistle line went viral. Memes of golden whistles flooded timelines. Fans pointed out how many times Vegas had benefited from those exact same calls in earlier games. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about Indiana being lucky. It was about Vegas being exposed. Even neutral fans piled in, saying this wasn't about refs. It was about Indiana outworking them. Through it all, Indiana's resilience shined. No Caitlin Clark, no Sophie Cunningham, multiple players sidelined, a roster written off by analysts and expected to fold. Instead, Coach Stephanie White rallied her team with one mantra: it doesn't matter who's missing, it matters who's here. And they believed it. While Vegas complained about officials, Indiana kept their heads down and won. They didn't hide behind narratives. They attacked, defended, and stayed united. White called them a really special group, and after Game 4, nobody could deny it. Now it's down to the wire. Game 5 in Las Vegas. One game for everything. The Aces will lean on their home crowd, the bright lights of Michelob Ultra Arena, and their championship pedigree. They'll adjust, study film, and come out desperate. But Indiana has the blueprint. Pound the paint, rebound like every miss is gold. Force Wilson to defend for 40 minutes. Let Mitchell stretch the floor. Let Hull harass Young. Let Sims attack seams. Let Petty calm the storm. And above all, let Boston dominate. It won't be easy. Vegas is still the defending champ. They know how to win big games, but momentum is a funny thing. Indiana has it now, and the Aces know it. If the Fever steal Game 5, it won't just be an upset. It'll be a seismic shift in the league. For Vegas, it means a dynasty in danger. Losing in the semifinals after back-to-back titles would stain their legacy. Wilson's reputation as MVP would take a hit. Hammond's aura as a brilliant coach would crack. For Indiana, it means rebirth. A franchise long stuck in mediocrity suddenly back on the map. A team that played without Clark, without Sophie, proving they are more than one star. That kind of win could reshape their future. And for Boston, it means something even bigger. A statement that she's not just a rising star. She's already here. Vegas called it a special whistle. Indiana called it basketball. The truth? It was dominance. The Aces weren't sabotaged. They were outplayed, outworked, and outfought. Now the question is simple. Will Indiana finish the job in Vegas, or will the Aces bounce back at home? From the sidelines, Caitlin Clark leaned over to her teammates with a smile and said two words that summed it all up. One more. What do you think? Was Aaliyah Wilson right about Boston's so-called special whistle, or was it just an excuse from a team finally meeting its match? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you believe Indiana has what it takes, and don't forget to subscribe. Game 5 is coming, and the storm isn't done yet. The thing about meltdowns is they reveal more than just frustration, they reveal fear. And if you watched closely, you could see the fear in Las Vegas that night. Not the fear of Boston alone, but the fear of what she represented. The Aces are used to dictating the tone, used to opponents breaking under their physicality. But when Indiana refused to break, when Boston planted herself on the block and dared them to move her, it forced the Aces into a territory they hadn't been in for years. Doubt. You could see it when Becky Hammond barked at the officials after another Boston free throw attempt. You could see it when Aaliyah Wilson smacked her hands together after being called for a foul, muttering in disbelief. And you could see it when Jackie Young walked to the bench with her 5th foul, shaking her head and whispering under her breath. These weren't the signs of a composed champion. These were the signs of a team unraveling. Meanwhile, Indiana played with joy. Every rebound Boston pulled down was followed by a fist pump. Every tough layup Mitchell converted was greeted with chest bumps from her teammates. Even the bench erupted after Odyssey Sims hit a jumper off glass, yelling and waving towels as though every possession was a knockout punch. That's the difference when you're the underdog. You play loose, you play free. You're not supposed to win, so every success tastes sweeter, and that looseness turned into confidence. By the 4th quarter, Indiana wasn't just surviving, they were controlling the game. The lead may not have ballooned into double digits, but the body language told the real story. Vegas looked desperate, Indiana looked calm. What makes Boston's rise even more remarkable is how quickly it has come. Just 1 year ago, she was adjusting to the pro game, learning to handle physicality from players she once admired on television. Now she's going toe-to-toe with the MVP and forcing her into post-game excuses. That's the kind of growth curve reserved for legends. And make no mistake, Game 4 felt like the night Boston's legend officially started. It wasn't just about her numbers, it was about her presence. When she stepped onto the floor, everything shifted. Vegas had to account for her on every possession, both offensively and defensively. That gravitational pull created space for teammates, gave Indiana more options, and slowly sapped the energy from the Aces. Wilson may have had the louder stat line with 31 points, but Boston had the louder impact. She bent the game her way. Now let's talk about Kelsey Mitchell, because her performance deserves its own spotlight. She's been in Indiana for years, through seasons of losing, through the long rebuilds, through the endless questions about whether the Fever could ever return to relevance. On that night, Mitchell looked like a player who had waited her whole career for this moment. Her step-back jumper over Chelsea Gray midway through the third quarter was one of those shots that scream leadership. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't passing off responsibility. She wanted the ball, and she wanted the moment. And when the game got tight, Mitchell didn't shrink. She hit free throws with the poise of a 10-year veteran. She orchestrated possessions when Vegas tried to trap her. She even yelled out directions to younger teammates, pointing to spots on the floor like a true floor general. These are the intangible things that don't show up in the box score but matter just as much as points and rebounds. Lexi Hull's grit added another dimension. How many players with a nagging back injury would have backed off, tried to conserve themselves, or asked for fewer minutes? Not Hull. She embraced the assignment of chasing Jackie Young across screens, of boxing out against taller players, of throwing herself on the hardwood for every 50-50 ball. When she blocked a shot late in the second quarter, you could see the adrenaline shoot through her. It wasn't just a defensive stop, it was a declaration. She was willing to sacrifice her body for this win. That kind of commitment spreads, teammates feed off it, coaches trust it, fans adore it. And then there's Odyssey Sims. What a redemption story. After Game 3, critics lit her up. Too many turnovers, too many missed shots, not enough composure. Some even wondered if she'd see fewer minutes in Game 4. Instead, she bounced back like a player with nothing to lose. Her mid-range jumper early in the fourth was silky smooth, and the roar from the Fever bench said it all. They trusted her. She delivered. That's what veterans do. They take the criticism, shake it off, and respond when it matters most. Shea Petty, though quieter on the stat sheet, deserves equal praise. Playoff basketball is as much about controlling emotions as it is about talent. Every time Vegas started a mini run, Petty calmed things down. A simple pass, a steady dribble, a smart shot. She was like the heartbeat of composure for Indiana. Teams without that kind of steady hand often unravel. Indiana had her, and it showed. So now we turn to the question hanging over everything. What happens in Game 5? Can Indiana really walk into Las Vegas and end the Aces dynasty on their home floor? That's the challenge. Vegas has been nearly unbeatable at Michelob Ultra Arena. The lights are brighter, the noise is louder, and the pressure is suffocating. But here's the twist. Sometimes pressure works both ways. Sure, it can rattle the underdog, but it can also crush the favorite. If Indiana jumps out early, if Boston establishes the paint in the first 5 minutes, if Mitchell drills an early 3, suddenly that Vegas crowd starts to tense up. The cheers get quieter, the doubts creep in, and if the Aces start thinking about what a semifinal loss would mean for their legacy, that pressure becomes unbearable. That's the psychology of elimination games. Indiana's blueprint is simple. Attack, attack, attack. Don't let Vegas rest. Crash the boards until every player is gasping for air, force Wilson to spend her energy defending Boston rather than coasting on offense, space the floor with shooters to punish overhelping, and never ever let the moment feel too big. The Fever have already faced more adversity than most teams could survive. They've lost stars, they've battled through injuries, they've been counted out at every step. What's one more road game for Vegas? The adjustments are clear. They'll try to swarm Boston again. They'll pressure Mitchell on the perimeter. They'll look to push the pace in transition, hoping to tire out Indiana's rotation players. And most importantly, they'll try to keep Wilson out of foul trouble. But here's the catch. When you start worrying about foul trouble, you stop playing as aggressively. And if Wilson plays with hesitation, Boston will eat her alive. This is where legacies are made. For Wilson, this is about proving she's not just an MVP on paper, but a closer who carries her team through adversity. For Hammond, it's about showing she can adapt, that she's not just a coach who wins when the whistle goes her way. For Indiana, it's about rewriting their story. No longer a rebuilding team, no longer an afterthought, but a legitimate contender, forged in the fire of underdog battles. Fans sense it. Social media is buzzing with predictions. Some say Vegas will regroup and blow Indiana out. Others are convinced the Fever's grit will prevail. The truth lies somewhere in the unknown. That's why Game 5 feels less like a basketball game and more like a moment of destiny. Think about it. When was the last time a team this banged up, this overlooked, pushed the defending champions to the brink without their own superstar rookie? That's what makes this run so special. Caitlin Clark may be sidelined, but her presence still hovers, sitting courtside, cheering, smiling after every big Fever bucket. When she leaned over and told Kelsey Mitchell, "Unreal," it wasn't just a compliment, it was recognition. Recognition that the Fever aren't just waiting for Clark to return, they're already building something bigger. And maybe that's the scariest part for Vegas. If Indiana is this good without Clark, imagine what they'll be when she's back. Game 5 isn't just about this season. It's about the future. A future where the Fever could dominate for years. A future where excuses about whistles won't matter because the scoreboard will speak louder than any referee's call. So call it a special whistle if you want. Call it luck. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night. But when the ball tips in Game 5, none of that matters. All that matters is who plays harder, who plays smarter, and who refuses to let the moment slip away. And if Game 4 taught us anything, it's that Indiana isn't afraid of the moment. Vegas is the giant. Indiana is the challenger. One more game decides it all. And if the Fever pull it off, the league won't just remember it as an upset. They'll remember it as the night a new power announced itself to the world.